I know most men listening to this would never harm a woman, but many of you have probably wondered how you can actually be part of the solution. Maybe you've seen behaviour that didn't feel right but weren't sure how to step in. Maybe you want to support women without speaking for them. Or maybe you're just worried you'll get it wrong. That's exactly the space we created Hassle for. I'm Amy Watson, and I founded Hassle to help men become part of the solution through education, training, and our Hassle Men Ambassador programme. In just over a year, we've built a community of more than 550,000 followers and over 3,000 ambassadors across more than 120 countries, seen by 250 million people worldwide. If you want to be part of building a safer culture and a safer world, I'd love for you to visit www.hassle.uk, HASSL, and explore Hassle Men. And if you'd like to hear more about my story, you can hear it right here on Sexual Assault Survivor Stories in episode 175.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast, coming to you from the Long Valley Studio in Washington, Utah. I'm your host, Dave Markel, and this is episode 190. This week, I'm joined once again by returning guest, Dr. Lori from Still Whole Wellness. And this conversation goes into some really important territory surrounding trauma, healing, self-worth, spirituality, boundaries, and what it actually means to become whole again after sexual trauma. One of the things I appreciate most about Dr. Lori is that she doesn't approach healing like it's some perfect destination people magically arrive at one day. She talks about healing as something intentional, something practiced, something lived out daily even in the middle of setbacks, fear, grief, anger, or uncertainty. We also spend time talking about boundaries and why they are not about shutting out people, but about protecting your peace, reclaiming your voice, and recognizing your own value. There's a lot in this episode that I think survivors, supporters, advocates, and even professionals working in this field are going to connect with very deeply. I know this episode is going to edify you, so let's get to it. Here's Dr. Lori. Hey, SAS listeners, I cannot tell you how excited and thrilled and honored I am to have a former guest back with me today, Dr. Lori Pitts. Lori, welcome back to the show. I am so glad you're here.
Me too, Dave. Blessings to you and all the listeners. I was just sharing with you before we started that you just have such a warming and just comfortable presence. It's like home now at this point. We've done this a couple times.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But it's been a while and there's much to get caught up on. I want to hear all about what's going on with your business and how that's working. And you've got a book out and I want you to talk about that. And there's a couple of topics. I want to let my guests hear your take on a few things that you do some therapy on. So this will be great. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Absolutely. So where do you want to start?
Well, Dr. Lori, let's have a recap of who you are, the name of your business, what you're doing. We got a lot of new listeners since last time you and I were talking together.
Absolutely.
The podcast is continuing to grow, so let's fill everybody in and remind people who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I'm Dr. Lori. I'm the owner and founder of Still Whole Wellness. My belief there is that healing can, in fact, happen every day if we're intentional about that. And I think that's the way we should be living life, from an intentional space. I am a mom of two with a bonus daughter in an amazing relationship where I get to be free to be all aspects of who I am, which is really nice, just to feel supported on all fronts. I am a lover of people. I serve people, and I do that proudly and from a really great space. I think that's important to mention because I think sometimes as practitioners and coaches and those in the helping industry, we can do it, but sometimes it's not always coming from the best space. Like right down to the point of before jumping onto a session call with the client, if I'm not feeling like myself, I'll cancel the call. Not just to protect them, but because I got to honor my own space and take care of myself.
That is so true and so important. That's awesome.
Yeah. So serving people from that kind of a heart position is literally the way I live my life. Within Still Whole Wellness, my company, I function as a life coach and a spiritual transformation life coach, to be specific, where I work with clients really from a 5-pillar perspective: mind, body, spirit, wealth, and relationships. And so we're taking all of those aspects of who we are and we're putting the mirror up against sexual trauma. And so my job is to help clients to understand exactly where sexual trauma is showing up in their lives in those 5 pillars, in those 5 ways. The whole idea of coaching really comes from a couple different things. There's got to be a decision that's up to the client that they're doing continuously. You got to decide to reach out. You got to decide to show up for the consultation, decide to do the homework assignment. So there's the decision, there is framework, which is like the structure, there's the plan. How are we going to get you from where you are? Maybe where you are is, I lost my voice. I don't advocate for myself. Maybe it is, I don't take very good care of my body. Maybe it's limiting beliefs. And so we're building framework around those things and planning. And then my direct piece with working with clients through Still Whole Wellness is the accountability. It's helping you flesh out those goals really nice and clear and then holding you accountable. And so that is all of the things that we do inside of the TAP program. So it's the Alchemist program within Still Whole Wellness. That's who I am. That's what I do.
Something you mentioned as you were explaining all that that I think is important for my listeners to hear too is that part of what you do is making sure that people know that they can heal every day and that they're
Yeah.
constantly aware of that aspect of it. But even people who know that they are survivors of sexual assault don't always admit that to themselves or confront that reality in their lives and ignore it and push it aside. It puts a block in the healing process if you're
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
aware of that and thinking about things that you can do for yourself to heal, because it can be a daily process. It doesn't have to be a weekly thing with a therapist or a coach. It can be a daily thing in terms of what
Exactly.
you do and how you present some healing aspects of your work. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Absolutely. You are hitting the nail on the head. I have a couple of things that I would regularly tell clients. One is that I'm never going to work harder for you than you work for yourself. So if you come into a session or if you're late for a session, because it all starts with the intention, right?
That's
So if you're
true.
late for a session, you show up to the session and you're severely distracted. That is you not honoring yourself, your space for you to be able to heal. And you're sending the message not only to me, but to yourself as well as to the universe that I'm not really ready for this. Either I'm not ready for this today, or I'm just not ready for this phase of healing. Whichever one it is, you got to figure that out. And I'll be right there with you to help you figure it out. But we got to figure that out because you're literally not honoring yourself. The other thing that I tell clients is that us meeting through Zoom, you working through the program, that's not it. It's quite literally not it. There has to be application on the other side, which is one reason why I offer homework almost after every session, because I want clients to understand that if you don't do the things that we talk about in the coaching sessions, the things that are within each module, if you don't do those things, if there's no application, then we just had a really great conversation or you just read some really great material. And I'm here to interrupt and help you to bring about real transformation.
Oh, I love that.
So I'm going to make sure that I'm like, hey, what's going on here? We got to fix this.
I love that. The fact that you use the word interrupt, there is some interruption needed in our thought processes
Yeah.
to say, look, there's this going on that you're ignoring or that you maybe just aren't aware of in your
Mm-hmm.
own consciousness of your damage, your trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There's this aspect. So I need to stop what you're thinking about now and redirect that.
Yeah,
And Still Whole, your book, addresses that too. Am I right?
it does. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there has to be an interruption
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be something different for everybody. I'm just going to work with the people that I'm called to. And the book allows me to cast that net just a little wider. So within the book, yeah, we're definitely talking about that ability to own your space, the whole thing, with the pain, with the disappointments, with all of the things that we don't really want to look at, all of that shadow work, as Jung describes it. Those are the very things we're going to bring all that to the surface, and in the most loving, most safest way that you can possibly do that. But we're going to bring it up with intention, and we can because we've got a plan, we've got a blueprint. That's why blueprint is in the title of the book, because I want people to understand there are some very key things. What do they say? That life leaves clues, right? If you can just follow these things that I have lived through and have been deep diving and studying for 20 years. And I've been able to watch so many other people and guide so many other people through that process. And along the way, I'm picking up new nuggets, new seeds. Follow the blueprint. And the blueprint is going to help you to actually own your wholeness, the whole thing, all of it, all of it.
Such a great word for what you're talking about, that wholeness.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack a little bit, if I could,
Mm-hmm.
and talk about that wholeness aspect of yourself and what inspired you to reach out to others with this whole process of starting Still Whole Wellness and book and what it is that you're talking about. What inspired you to share?
That's a very good question. What inspired me to share is really simple. I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I know that some of my thought processes around trauma are, to some, are controversial. Some people will hear me say things like sexual trauma didn't happen to me, it happened for me, and take great offense
Yeah,
to that,
I know we
right?
talked about that before. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I've lived in the pain long enough. I've become so familiar with the frequency of it. I've gotten used to the language of it. I'm so accustomed to it and so familiar with it. There's even some numerical synchronicities that come up in it for me, where certain offenses happen on similar days or the same day. I'm so familiar with it. So now that you're familiar with it, what do you do with it? It's not just enough to just be aware that it happened. There's got to be a purpose to it. This is the reason why I say that I'm a spiritual transformation coach, because it's an art to take a person from looking at their human experience and switching that vision to where they're looking at the purpose of the thing that happened. That's where you can really take yourself a heck of a lot further, because now you're looking at the root, the spirit. And then now you can then transfer that back over to that human experience and allow that to be something different, to where you're still aware of the pain, but you're not over enmeshed in it. You're
Mm-hmm.
not living in it. You're not in survival. That's what motivated me. I recognized what I was doing within myself, and then I started seeing it in other people. And I'm like, okay, I got to do something with what I know. Does this make sense to sit on it?
That is so amazing and inspirational, I think. Let's delve more into the spirituality part of it. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who don't realize that they are spiritual beings, and some people don't want to
Mm-hmm.
believe that they're a spiritual being.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all made up of body, soul, and spirit, and
Absolutely.
that spirit is something that we shouldn't ignore. Talk more about the
Absolutely.
spirituality aspect of this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I believe that we are definitely all of those things. I'll say this very lovingly. My personal, just me, my personal belief as to why people struggle with the acceptance of the spiritual aspect of who they are is because then they are afraid that there's going to be some responsibility that is now attached to that awareness. It's
Yeah.
like, oh gosh, something else I've got to attend to and take care of and nurture. But when you actually allow yourself to embrace it, then you really start to understand how powerful you truly are. I'll give you an example. I was working with a client just earlier today. And one of her biggest challenges, and it's something that we actually cover in spirit module of the TAP program, and that is reclaiming your voice. And so she has this tendency of not really advocating for herself. And then she has this big exam. She ultimately fails the exam. We're having the conversation of, okay, what's going on with your internal dialogue? How are you speaking about this situation? She acknowledged she wasn't speaking about it in a very positive way. I like to call it in the direction that you're going. So we started doing some work around that. Ultimately, her homework was to be aware of her self talk, specifically the things that she actually puts vibrational voice to, because that carries the weight. So she did that, passed the test, flying colors, no problem. She did that all week, where she was just affirming out of her mouth, I've passed this exam. I've passed this exam. Allowing herself to be excited, to get into the energy of the success of it. Met with her about 2 hours ago now, and immediately, as soon as she comes on the Zoom, her face is just completely lit up. She just looked completely different from what she did last week. And I even said something to her before knowing she passed the exam. I said, you look brighter, you look lighter. She said, I passed my exam. There is spirit that is happening in every single thing that we do, no matter how insignificant we may think that it is. It's operating everywhere, and we have more control of it than we think we do. We truly do. As survivors, if you are operating at a certain vibration and what you want is at a higher vibration, as Abraham Hicks says, you've got some dissonance that's happening there. Mm-hmm. You've got to actually come up to the energy or to the vibrational frequency of the thing that you want. And oftentimes for survivors, we have challenges with that because we've got all these other obstacles and all this hurt and gunky stuff in the way that prevents us from getting there. Spirit is happening all over the place.
And in line with that, too, one of the things that you mentioned in the topics that you cover is reprogramming the subconscious mind. Being aware of that spirituality and being aware of your own situational progress or lack thereof does include that subconscious aspect. Tell us more about that.
I love to approach the subconscious mind from dreams, where you're able to take the different symbolisms within a dream and it actually makes you aware of what is maybe unresolved in your waking life, right? And so in that analyzation, you can pick up so many different things. I wish I could recall a couple of them for you. I can remember that there was a dream that I had about my mom, who, if you recall, passed in 2018. There was teacups that was involved. And I found that to be really strange because I never knew my mom particularly care for tea or anything like that. But when I looked up the meaning of the teacup in a dream, it suggested this elegance and this gentleness that what the cup represented. And so then when I compared that or kind of wove that into the messaging, and I won't share that here because it was really personal, but
sure.
What the messaging that my mom was offering to me in that dream was the cup made it very significant in the way that she delivered it and things like that. There's a lot that we can uncover. There just being so many different things that our minds, when we are resting, that subconscious mind, it kicks into gear and we're able to really pull and abstract a lot of different understandings and awarenesses just from observing our dreams.
Let me ask you this, and this may be too personal for you to answer, but I'll ask it and let you decide. But when you think back about your mom and that connection that you looked up and found elegance connected with teacups, do you consider your mom an elegant person?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My mom was a lady. She was a lady, just very ladylike, very graceful, a sweetheart. She used to tell us all the time, leave people better than you found them. That was her biggest thing that she would tell us all the time.
Well, let me say this, not knowing your mom, but knowing you, she did an amazing job of passing that elegance on and that care for
Thank you.
others. And
Thank
you're
you.
practicing what she taught. It's so
I,
good.
I like to think I'm making her proud. Yeah.
No, you are.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with you and so impressed with your work. And I love being able to talk to you like this. I'm sorry that we haven't gotten caught up sooner, but we've both
I
been through
know. I
quite a
know.
bit since last time we talked,
Yeah.
and life kind of gets in the way
Yeah.
sometimes. But sometimes, like you've already just mentioned, sometimes you have to interrupt life and get to the stuff that heals. And
Yes.
that's how I feel with talking to you. It's a healing process even for me, but I know my audience is getting some healing and some good out of listening to what you're talking about here. Do you actually get a sense of healing from helping others and from watching the progress they make? Tell us about how that impacts your life.
That's a good question. It's going to sound weird, but I guess I recognize that I'm not a part of it in a strange way. It really is their stuff. I'm just there to hold the space. Do I get excited when I see that a client is making progress? Yeah, of course. It's hard to not get excited. Each session is their space to do what they need to do, to celebrate themselves, because for a lot of them, their families and friends are not celebrating them. So I'm like, yeah, let's rock out right here. Or even if it's crying, sometimes you just need to just release. I'm so grateful that here recently I've actually had an influx of male clients. And it's something that I had definitely been praying for. But it's like now that it's here, this is really cool. Men, they don't really want to express that emotion. And sometimes maybe even unsure of where they can express and release that anger or whatever that emotion is. But in our sessions, they know that they can do that. I love being able to create a space where they can, because
Right.
you got to get it out. It's got to come out.
Talk about, if you would, the aspect of trauma and self worth, how you can gain some self worth in recognizing your trauma.
I'll say it this way: you can refill your cup. If we can think of it this way, trauma pokes holes in the cup. You get to seal those holes up and fill the cup. And we're filling that cup with tools so that the self worth is not so much the issue. Again, you're not even focused on that because we're human beings. Everybody's going to have some issue around their worthiness. We're not trying to sidestep being human. We're just trying to figure out, how can I be human and leverage this powerful spirit I have to help me be human. So the self-worth is going to be there, but now you've got the tools in the cup to help you keep the cup full. I don't know what other coaches do. I've heard a lot of them mention, oh, you've got to make sure that the client knows that they're progressing and all these benchmarks and all these things. There's that, and then there's so not that. This is a process. Healing every day, that suggests that long after you leave my space, hopefully you're still healing. It's such a process. So for me, it's more, this is practicing mastery. We're practicing mastering certain skills. We're practicing mastering how to set healthy boundaries. We're mastering and practicing how to stick up for yourself, how to better take care of your body, because trauma told you that I don't need to honor my body, so I'm not going to take care of it. So we're practicing basic stuff. But once that cup is full and you've got all those tools, you're no longer focused on that self-worth or the lack thereof. Your energy is not even in that direction anymore. You're so focused on the knowing that if the self-worth were to creep in, if that was to creep in and become an issue, I've got the tools. I'm not stressed about it.
Express more, if you would, about the boundaries issue that you just mentioned. That's part of the
Mm,
self worth thing in terms of
absolutely.
setting boundaries for ourselves, but not only physical boundaries for how
Mm-hmm.
we want other people to treat us, but there's also spiritual boundaries and soul boundaries and a whole gamut of that put together.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about that.
Boundaries, they've gotten a bad rap because
Mm,
people really feel that boundaries are to keep people out and really interpret them as this way of disconnecting and just putting a cute little label on it. But boundaries are disruption. It's a disruption for the quote unquote offender that is trying to cross that boundary. You're basically saying, no, we can't do that over here. And it's also a disruption for you, for the person offering the boundary. Because every single time you honor the boundary and you speak to the boundary, because it's not a boundary until it's spoken, every time you speak about it, you're reaffirming to yourself, I care for me. My needs actually matter. What it is that I am comfortable with, that matters. So it's a huge tie in with boundaries. There's a lot of conversation in the program and in the book about boundaries because it is almost like the evidence, if you will, that you have some self worth. I actually become very frightened when I come across a person, and I've come across a couple in my life that say, "Oh, I don't have any boundaries. I'm just open." Okay. Well, now my eyes are watching you, because that's a scary place to be in. And I've come across a couple people that are just like, I don't have any boundaries. I just let people just flow. Okay. We'll see how long that works. You've got to be able to say what's all right for you.
If they're one of those people, and you said you haven't run into many, but a few, who say, I have no boundaries and I just let people be free, does that also then kind of give you an idea, projection wise, of their own danger to themselves by becoming something inappropriate to the people they confront every day? If they don't have any boundaries for others coming, around, surrounding how they hold self-worth and how they accept the world, aren't they also a danger to others because they're not declaring any boundaries for themselves either in terms of how they treat others and what they do to other
Exactly.
people and what they're doing in society?
Exactly. This is why I say, let's see how long that works for you, because at some point there's going to be a consequence for that. If you are not of the mindset of, yes, I'm this grounded spiritual person, trusting all of those wonderful things, and also not equally as aware that not everybody is where you are, therefore you need to have boundaries, I pray for you for whatever the consequences would be on the other side of that.
Mm.
I mean, just look at the roads. The reason why we have barriers and lines in the road is because sometimes people are going to cross the line. Yeah, boundaries are very much necessary, without a doubt. Without a doubt. You can be the most spiritual person on the planet, and hopefully you still have enough sense to have some boundaries. Because otherwise you're just telling people you can do whatever and so can I.
Yeah, that's the point I was making. Yeah, you just articulated that perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think what's an important aspect of this, and that some people don't realize, is that boundaries aren't restrictive. I think boundaries are freedoms,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what you were saying
Yeah,
earlier? That if you want to be a
absolutely.
free person, if you want to be a full person, a whole person,
There, there you
a
go.
whole
Yes.
wellness, you have to have boundaries.
Yeah. And we think back to the analogy of the road. The barriers are there, the guide rails are there, the lines are there, but no one said you couldn't drive. You can
Right.
still drive. You can always get on the interchange and go on a different road, but you got to stay within the lines. Same thing.
Or there's
Same
danger.
thing.
Yeah,
This is not about trying to keep you out or anything. It's just, let's have some order to how we're doing things. Let me be able to say what's okay for me, and you be able to say what's okay for you, and us have some mutual respect.
yeah, because like you were
Yeah.
just talking about, those consequences are destructive if you
Oh
don't.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
So this self-worth for me, boundaries is just like the evidence that, like, okay, yes, I do have some self-worth. Especially when you can have the boundary and actually effectively express the boundary. Because it's one thing to think you have a boundary but not express it. So is that's a whole different thing. It's necessary. It's gotta happen.
This is so helpful. I'm so glad that we reconnected and that we're talking about this. My audience needs to hear
Absolutely.
this. I need to hear it. This is so good.
Thank
If
you.
people want to have your coaching or therapy, do you do virtual treatments also?
pretty much ever since the pandemic, I guess you could say, I've been doing all virtual. I don't think I've gone back to in person since then. And I also find that it helps, like clients really like being in their own private space. And so it works out a lot better. So it's all individual sessions, but I also offer family sessions as well. And it's all virtual.
Okay. And therefore, probably means it doesn't matter where they are, right? If they've got internet and a way of talking into their computer and listening, you can.
And
have
it
a
also
session.
doesn't matter where I am. I've had some sessions where I'll take a break from vacation, find a quiet corner behind a closed door and do that session and go right back to enjoying the family. So it also is a blessing for me to have the freedom to be able to move through life the way I need to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it in the episode notes, but tell people how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, sure. You can reach out to me directly via email at stillwholewellness@gmail.com. You can reach me by filling out a contact form on the website, which is www.stillwholewellness.com. Or you can text me at 909-294-6139. You can also find me on most social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, under Still Whole Wellness, Dr. Lori.
How do you keep up with it all?
A lot of automations and bugging my children to help their dear old mom.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
My eldest child wants to strangle me about once a month because I don't know how to do something.
Yeah.
She helps out a lot. She really does. She's such a bright girl. She's so smart.
That's cool.
So yeah, she helps her mom out a lot.
I love that.
Yeah.
Dr. Lori, I want to wrap this up, but I don't want to wait too long before we have another conversation together.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for your willingness to do this again. I love that you reached out to me and asked me if I would be able to have contact with you again. Thank you for this time that we've spent together. I know, like I said, it's edifying to me. I know it's going to be edifying to this audience.
I hope so. Here to serve.
Noelle, you're doing amazing work, and it's blessing so many lives and saving lives. So thank you for what you do to help bring justice to victims and survivors. I say victims and survivors because some people are still stuck in their current situations. They still are being victimized, being abused, and being perpetrated on, but are looking for ways to escape and to find other ways to live. And this is just another opportunity for that to possibly happen. I appreciate you.
I agree. Thank you so much. And I just celebrate you for continuing to maintain this space, for people like myself, other survivors, to be able to have a space where we can have these conversations that help the collective to heal. This space is very necessary. It's very sacred. And I just appreciate you for availing yourself to create it.
Well, thank you. And it is comments like that that inspire me and motivate me to keep this going. It's something that I really do feel a blessing hearing people say that this podcast is helping. I think it's that amazing community of people like you and other victims and other survivors who actually come on the show and talk about what they're going through, and other people can relate. It's amazing how many people have reached out to each other who've been guests on this show. It's built quite the community. Thank you for being part of that.
Look at you over here creating family, creating community and tribe. I love it.
It wasn't something that I had preconceived of. All I wanted to do is give people a platform to be able to tell their story. It's an innate human experience to want to tell your story.
Absolutely.
But
right.
Man, the community, I knew there would be some of that, but the community that has grown out of this has been amazing. And I'm really thrilled for that people have taken advantage of reaching out to each other. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's beautiful.
It really
I love
is.
It.
Well, we will do this again soon, Dr.
Yes, we will. I'm going to hold you to that.
You bet. I'm looking forward to it.
Blessings to you all.
You too. Thank you again. That does it for another episode of Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast. I want to thank Dr. Lori once again for coming back on the show and for being willing to have such an honest and meaningful conversation about healing, spirituality, boundaries, trauma, and the ongoing process of reclaiming yourself after sexual violence. One of the biggest things that I hope you remember about this conversation is that healing is not passive. It requires intention, honesty, learning how to speak to yourself differently, how to treat yourself differently, and sometimes how to completely rebuild the way you see your own worth. I also think that her perspective on boundaries is something people really need to hear and remember. Boundaries are not punishment or rejection. They are protection, and they're self-respect. And for many survivors, learning to establish and communicate healthy boundaries can become one of the most important parts of healing. As always, thank you all for continuing to support this podcast. I can't tell you what it means to me. Please remember that a huge part of helping bring justice to victims and survivors of rape and sexual assault is to start by believing. Also, let's continue supporting one another and to remember to normalize the conversation about the realities of sexual violence, because we all know someone who's experienced rape or sexual assault. We'll see you next week.